Welcome to Football Game Plan's Best Bets. I am Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook, and like we always do with our Best Bets show, let's take a look back at last week to see what I learned. Last week in college football, I quickly learned who Joe Milton was and how effective he can be running this Michigan offense. You looked at an offense that was able to run the football, dominate the point of attack, and also have the explosive plays that could make them a potential contender, not just in the Big Ten, but in the college football playoff picture as a whole. And they have a huge test this upcoming weekend against Michigan State. In the NFL, even though they were on a bye week, we talked about Tua Tagovailoa last weekend in our NFL All 32 show about how he's going to start. And when you look at his start in conjunction with what they have on the perimeter at wide receiver and at tight end, and what he could help do for the run game, along with an improving offensive line, it may be time to start taking a hard look at the Miami Dolphins against the spread, as well as with their over-unders in their upcoming ball games. They have a great chance to start putting up a lot of points on the board, so keep that in mind as we move forward in the NFL regular season. Now let's take a look at some of my favorite prop bets heading into Week 8 of the NFL. Over in the Eagles-Cowboys game, I do think the Philadelphia Eagles will get the first scoring play, and that'll be a Philly touchdown, so I'm taking that prop bet at plus 140. To me, that's an easy one to make considering who they're going up against on the defensive side of football. In the Kansas City Jets game, I think we'll see 3 to 4 touchdowns scored, so I'm taking that prop at 245. I think you'll see a series of field goals as well, but I think 3 to 4 touchdowns, with 4 being the max number that I'm betting on at plus 245. And in that Rams-Dolphins game, don't be surprised if this one is closer than the experts think. And because of that, I'm going plus 280 that the Rams will win the game by 1 to 6 points, with that being more on the lower end. I think this will be a one-possession game with it coming down to the wire. So I like the Rams to win by 1 to 6 points. And in the best game of the weekend, in my opinion, the AFC game of the week between Pittsburgh and Baltimore, here's my favorite prop bet of the weekend. I think at plus 850, I'll take the chance that they will score under 3 touchdowns. I think once you hit 2 touchdowns, I'm looking at a 17-7 type game, 17-10 type game in this matchup. And when you factor in there's going to be a lot of weather this weekend in Baltimore, I'm saying with 2 tough defenses and the way these teams know each other, I'm going to go under 3 touchdown scores. And finally, plus 1,400, I'm going out on a limb here that no turnovers will happen in the Cleveland-Las Vegas Raiders game. I know it's easy to look at Baker Mayfield and say he's going to give you at least 1 interception or 1 fumble. I think both teams will play a clean game, and this one will be one of the more entertaining matchups of the weekend. Be sure to order your copy of the Go-Go Offense by Coach Brennan Marion on footballgameplan.com/GoGoOffense. Coach Marion goes through the ins and outs of his explosive offense, one that's tearing up the college football field and putting a lot of points on the scoreboard. Again, you can order your copy at footballgameplan.com/GoGoOffense. Now it's time to go against the spread, and we'll start in college football where it's week 9 and we say hello to Michigan and Michigan State. When you look at what happened to Michigan State last weekend against Rutgers in their upset loss, it was about them not being able to stop the run, more in particular the quarterback run game. And guess what they're going to see a lot of against Joe Milton and the Michigan Wolverine offense? A lot of the QB run game. So I like Michigan to cover here against Sparty. South Alabama has played solid football all season long, and their level of consistency has contributed to their 3-2 record on the season. I have no concerns about their offense's ability to find plays in the passing game against Georgia Southern. What worries me about this matchup for them is that Georgia Southern's quadruple option offense does a great job of not only being explosive, but chewing up the time of possession. That's why the line is only at -4, but there's also a reason why I like them to cover, so lay those points with Georgia Southern. It wasn't quite the start that Maryland quarterback Tua Tagovailoa expected, and the games don't get any easier as the season rolls along for Maryland. Minnesota, despite their lopsided loss to Michigan, had multiple opportunities to close the gap in that contest, and we saw their offense be able to move the ball enough to continue to put pressure on the Wolverines in that game, who have a really good defense. They won't find much resistance in this one against the Terrapins. I like Minnesota. Tulsa is trying to keep pace in a very competitive American Athletic Conference race with Cincinnati and SMU, and they come into this ball game with an offense that is capable of striking quickly and a defense that's very active and able to turn the ball over at an impressive clip. East Carolina has struggled with consistency all season long, which, considering the year that we're in, is very understandable. That's a tough matchup for them against Tulsa, so I'm taking the Golden Hurricane to cover that 17 points. What I like about Kansas State is that they are excellent in all three facets of the game: offense with running back Deuce Vaughn, defense with cornerback A.J. Parker, and special teams with their returnman Phillip Brooks. They currently sit atop the Big 12 standings and will go a long way of putting the rest of the country on notice that they indeed have the goods to make a college football playoff run. The Wildcats have gotten better every game since their opening week loss to Arkansas State, so take Kansas State and the points against West Virginia. The Fighting Irish showed their ability in the passing game in last week's victory against the Pitt Panthers. Defensively, they look strong at all three levels, and they face a Georgia Tech team that has talent, but they are also prone to turning the ball over. And once Notre Dame is able to get the ball behind the best offensive line in the nation, they are able to run their way to pay dirt. So look for this to be an easy cover for Notre Dame. Iowa State was a really tough challenge for the Oklahoma State Cowboys last week, but they were able to pass with flying colors. This week, they face a very inconsistent Texas Longhorns team, one that you can't trust from week to week. What you can trust, however, is an Oklahoma State defense that has proved week in, week out that they are not an aberration, but a significant sign of continuity for a team that's gunning for a playoff berth, so lay those points with the Cowboys. Ohio State started to look like Ohio State that we saw last year in the second half of their game against Nebraska. I would expect them to hit the ground running this week against Penn State, whose backfield has been decimated by injury after injury, and that puts a lot of pressure on quarterback Sean Clifford and the passing game, which will make them vulnerable against the Buckeyes pass rush. Bad timing and bad matchup here for Penn State, so I'm trusting Ohio State minus 12. The Indianapolis Colts currently sit at 4-2 on the season, but when you take a deeper look at their wins, it has been mainly against bad football teams. And watching them play, you can see why they tend to struggle against solid to good squads. Now, Detroit enters this game riding a 2-game winning streak and has looked better, per se, than the Colts in their 3 wins on the season. The Lions are trending in the right direction as they've started to play good complementary football, so I'm taking the Lions and the points. Tennessee nearly came back against the Pittsburgh Steelers last week in a clash of AFC Titans. In this game against the Bengals, the matchup will be between their defensive front seven and the Bengals' offensive line, which has played very inconsistent all season long. Their inability to protect quarterback Joe Burrow on a consistent basis really hamstrings the potential of their offense. This is a bad matchup for the Bengals, so I'm laying the points with Tennessee. This is the AFC game of the week. Pittsburgh is a well-coached team with Mike Tomlin as their head coach, and they'll have a great game plan dialed up, but unfortunately, he can't go out there on the field and play, and he will be leaning on a defense to make sure they stay assignment sound and gap disciplined against Lamar Jackson. Now, the Ravens seemingly have gotten better during the bye week by adding defensive end Yannick Ngakoue from the Vikings. They are looking at this matchup as a potential playoff one and one that could give them sole possession of first place in the AFC North. So I'm laying the points with the Ravens. It is becoming increasingly hard to trust the Bears on a weekly basis. Mainly, it's hard to trust their offense as Nick Foles has issues in avoiding pressure, and they don't have any run game to speak of to complement that. If the Bears don't score defensively, or if they can't get a special teams touchdown, then it will be hard for them to find the end zone against a good team like New Orleans. So I'm laying the points with the Saints. With Cowboys quarterback Andy Dalton out due to a concussion, rookie Ben DiNucci gets a start against Philadelphia, and that's a tough task to ask for a rookie to take on, as the Eagles' defensive line should be able to harass him all game long. Eagles quarterback Carson Wentz played great down the stretch of last week's win versus the Giants, and I fully expect him to be able to carry that over into this ball game. So look for the Eagles to create a sizable gap between them and the rest of the NFC East teams in the division. I'm laying at 7.5 with Philly. So that's it for this edition of Best Bet Time. Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook. Be sure to follow me on all of my social media accounts. And don't forget to check out and subscribe to the Football Game Plan Network located at youtube.com/footballgameplan. Also subscribe on iTunes to Football Game Plan Podcast and leave us a 5-star rating.